Welcome to InfoStream, your daily current. Unsure what to listen to? Turn to us for today's headlines. Stay informed. Darfur atrocities cause displacement. Human rights concerns persist in region. Government shutdown disrupts food assistance. Benefits are affected nationwide. Trump orders nuclear testing restart. This action raises questions. Prince Andrew loses title over Epstein ties. The scandal continues to unfold. U.S. military strikes drug boats. Legal challenges emerge. Trump lowers refugee admissions. Record low numbers announced. Netherlands elects young Prime Minister Jetten takes office. Tanzania election results. Disputed protests and uncertainty remain. Redistricting battles continue. Political disputes intensify. Trump attempts to rewrite January 6 controversial actions reported. CNN analyzes off-year election results. Poll data is examined. Pheu party names new leader. Challenges ahead for Thailand. Hurricane Melissa hits Caribbean. A humanitarian crisis develops. FBI fires Trump investigation agent. Legal disputes continue. Mamdani defends past statements. Campaign scrutiny increases. RSF atrocities and civilian displacement in Darfur. The ongoing conflict in Darfur, primarily involving the Rapid Support Forces, RSF, and the Sudanese army, has resulted in widespread atrocities and mass displacement. Recent news reports detail the RSF's systematic killings of civilians, particularly men, within the besieged city of El Fasher. Evidence, including satellite imagery and videos shared by the RSF themselves, reveals deliberate executions, often targeting men based on their ethnic groups. These actions are compounded by reports of sexual violence, kidnapping, and forced detentions, with many men disappearing while attempting to escape. Approximately 5,000 individuals, predominantly women and children, have reached refugee camps in Tawela, southern Darfur, following harrowing journeys marked by violence and loss. Survivors recount being subjected to relentless harassment, looting, and summary executions, highlighting the extreme danger faced by those attempting to flee. The RSF's actions are further exacerbated by the presence of armed groups from the Sahel region and alleged support from the United Arab Emirates. Despite denials from the UAE, investigations into these atrocities are urgently needed, with international organizations calling for immediate accountability. The situation is complicated by the RSF's documented practice of filming killings and posting them online, demonstrating a perceived lack of accountability. 6 medical staff, including 4 doctors, have been kidnapped by the RSF, demanding substantial ransoms. The scale of the displacement and the documented human rights violations underscore the severity of the crisis. The international community is responding with calls for a ceasefire and independent investigations, but the immediate future remains uncertain as the RSF continues its operations and the civilian population endures immense suffering. The situation is further complicated by the challenges of reaching those still trapped within El Fasher and ensuring their safety. Government shutdown impacts food stamp benefits. A significant portion of the current political landscape revolves around the ongoing government shutdown and its repercussions on essential services, most notably the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, a SNEP, commonly known as food stamps. Multiple news articles detail the escalating crisis and legal challenges surrounding the program's funding. The core issue centers on the USDA's decision to withhold funds from the contingency fund, intended for use during government shutdowns. Despite congressional intent and prior agency guidance, the USDA instructed states to halt the distribution of November SNAP benefits, creating a substantial delay and potential hardship for millions of Americans who rely on the program. Legal action has been taken by a coalition of Democratic attorneys general and governors who filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration, arguing that the USDA's actions violate federal law and represent an arbitrary and capricious decision. A federal judge in Boston indicated her intention to intervene, questioning the legality of suspending benefits when funds are available. The situation highlights a fundamental disagreement between the executive branch and state and local governments regarding the administration's interpretation of federal law and its responsibilities during a shutdown. The USDA's stance that the contingency fund cannot be used for regular benefits contrasts sharply with the expectation that it should be employed to maintain essential services. Furthermore, the delay in benefit distribution raises concerns about potential food insecurity for vulnerable populations. States are now grappling with the challenge of determining how to reduce benefit amounts, a process that is likely to be complex and potentially disruptive. The legal battle over SNAP funding is not isolated. It represents a broader struggle over government authority and the administration's approach to managing crises. The ongoing shutdown underscores the fragility of essential services and the potential for political disputes to have tangible consequences for the most vulnerable members of society. The legal proceedings and continued disagreement signify a critical juncture in the resolution of this complex issue. Trump's unexpected order to resume nuclear testing. A recent news reports detail President Donald Trump's surprise directive to initiate nuclear testing after a 33-year hiatus, a move that caught many of his advisors off guard. The order, issued from Marine One while en route to South Korea for a summit with Xi Jinping, aimed to start testing our nuclear weapons on an equal basis, a statement that raised immediate concerns about potential treaty violations and geopolitical ramifications. The move was met with skepticism, particularly from key figures within the military, including Vice Admiral Richard Correll, who was nominated to oversee the U.S. nuclear arsenal. Correll clarified that neither China nor Russia had conducted recent explosive nuclear tests, and he didn't anticipate the order would translate into immediate testing. The decision stemmed, in part, from China's rapid modernization of its nuclear arsenal, prompting a renewed focus on U.S. capabilities. However, experts cautioned that resuming testing could disrupt existing modernization strategies and potentially benefit China more than the United States. Trump's approach to nuclear weapons has historically been unconventional, marked by provocative statements and a willingness to disregard established norms. His past comments, including taunting Kim Jong-un about his nuclear button, highlighted his complex relationship with the subject. While a test site in Nevada exists, logistical and legal hurdles, including potential lawsuits from states, suggest that actual testing is years away. The resumption of testing could violate international treaties, further complicating the already tense global landscape. The situation underscores a shift in U.S. foreign policy, prioritizing a more assertive approach to nuclear deterrence. However, the potential consequences of this decision, including treaty breaches and geopolitical instability, remain significant. The order has sparked debate regarding the long-term implications for nuclear strategy and international relations. Royal titles stripped from Prince Andrew following Epstein scandal. Prince Andrew has been stripped of his royal titles and will relocate from his Windsor estate residence following sustained accusations of sexual assault linked to Jeffrey Epstein's activities. Buckingham Palace announced the immediate commencement of the formal process to remove all of Andrew's titles, marking a significant escalation in the royal family's response to the ongoing controversy. Moving forward, he will be known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. The decision follows the publication of Virginia Gifford's posthumous memoir, which detailed allegations of 3 sexual encounters with Andrew, occurring when she was 17 years old. Gifford's death in April, attributed to suicide while awaiting trial related to Epstein's trafficking activities, intensified the pressure on Andrew. The palace's statement emphasized the need for these censures, despite Andrew's continued denial of the accusations. Their Majesties expressed their thoughts and sympathies for victims and survivors of abuse. Recent revelations, including reports of a minimal rent arrangement for Royal Lodge over the past 2 decades, fueled further public outrage. This arrangement stemmed from a 2003 deal with the Crown Estate, the royal family's land holdings. The situation was further complicated by reports of Andrew hosting Epstein, his girlfriend Ghislaine Maxwell, and Harvey Weinstein at Royal Lodge in 2006 for his daughter Beatrice's 18th birthday. Despite initial resistance, Andrew is now required to relocate to King Charles' estate in Sandringham, Eastern Norfolk, and will be financially supported by the King. His ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson, will independently arrange her own living arrangements. The removal of titles reflects the growing pressure on the royal family to address the scandal decisively. The situation highlights the complexities of navigating legal and public relations challenges in the face of serious allegations. The decision underscores the palace's commitment to prioritizing the well-being of victims and upholding accountability. The move signifies a turning point in the ongoing saga, signaling a significant shift in the royal family's approach to managing the fallout from the Epstein scandal. U.S. military strikes on drug boats spark controversy and legal concerns. The recent U.S. military strikes against vessels suspected of drug trafficking in the Caribbean and Pacific waters have ignited significant controversy, raising legal questions and prompting criticism from both Congress and international observers. The U.S. Navy, under President Trump's direction, has conducted over 60 attacks since early September, killing an estimated 60 individuals. These strikes, justified by the administration as a necessary measure to combat drug trafficking into the United States, are being challenged on legal grounds, with UN Human Rights Chief Volker Turk condemning them as extrajudicial killings. A key point of contention is the lack of transparency surrounding the operations. Democrats on Capitol Hill have expressed deep dissatisfaction, alleging that they were excluded from briefings on the strikes. despite their oversight responsibilities for the use of lethal force by the military outside the United States. While Republican chairmen of the House Intelligence and Armed Services Committees attended briefings, they, too, voiced concerns about the limited information provided. The administration's legal justification rests primarily on Article 2 of the Constitution, citing the targeting of narco-terrorists and focusing on cocaine as the primary drug involved, despite it being a facilitating drug for fentanyl. However, lawmakers argue this approach lacks sufficient detail and a clear strategy. The exclusion of Democratic members from briefings is seen as particularly troubling, with Senator Richard Blumenthal calling it a volumes to this administration, concealing the facts and worrying about the law. Republicans acknowledged the need for bipartisan briefings, with Senator Mike Rounds stating that it was unfortunate and that his colleagues requested further briefings. Despite this, the exclusion of Democratic members remains a significant issue, highlighting a breakdown in communication and transparency between the executive and legislative branches. The situation underscores concerns about the administration's legal justification for the strikes and the potential for abuse of power, prompting calls for greater accountability and oversight. The lack of shared information has fueled criticism and raised serious questions about the legality and effectiveness of the U.S. military's operations. Trump lowers refugee admissions to record low, prioritizing white South Africans. The Trump administration has significantly reduced the number of refugees admitted to the United States, setting a new annual cap of 7,500. This represents a dramatic decrease from the previous limit of 125,000 established by the Biden administration and marks a record low in refugee admissions. The decision is justified by humanitarian concerns or is otherwise in the national interest, according to a notice published on the Federal Register. The move primarily targets white South Africans, specifically Afrikaners, who are described as victims of discrimination and violence in their homeland. This prioritization follows a February announcement offering asylum to members of the Afrikaner community, largely white descendants of early Dutch and French settlers. The administration's action is rooted in claims of persecution faced by white farmers in South Africa, a narrative that has fueled controversy. The Trump administration initially suspended the U.S. refugee admissions program on its first day in office, a move that has severely limited refugee arrivals. The 7,500 cap reflects a continued trend of reduced admissions, primarily focused on this specific group. The administration has utilized videos depicting burial sites for murdered white farmers, later revealed to be from a 2020 protest, to bolster its claims. The South African government strongly denies the allegations of widespread persecution against its citizens and has vehemently rejected the Trump administration's actions, leading to the expulsion of the country's ambassador to Washington. The situation has prompted significant repercussions for resettlement organizations across the United States, resulting in layoffs due to the dramatic decrease in refugee arrivals. The decision has drawn criticism internationally and further highlights the administration's focus on national security concerns and prioritizing specific demographics in refugee admissions. The administration's strategy continues to face legal challenges and opposition from human rights groups, advocating for the protection of vulnerable refugees from around the world. The future of the program remains uncertain, contingent on ongoing legal battles and shifting political priorities. Rob Jetten set to become Netherlands' youngest prime minister, following a nail-bitingly close election. Following a remarkably close election race, Rob Jetten, leader of the centrist D66 party, is poised to become the Netherlands' youngest prime minister. The election saw Jetten vying for the most seats in parliament against anti-Islam populist Geert Wilders, with D66 achieving a narrow lead of 15,000 votes over Wilders' Freedom Party. Despite initial opinion polls favoring Wilders, Jetten's campaign, characterized by a positive message and the slogan, "Het kan wel," a yes we can, resonated with voters, particularly in key cities like Rotterdam, The Hague, and Utrecht. Jetten's success is attributed to a strategic shift following a disastrous D66 performance in the 2023 election, where the party secured only 9 seats. This previous setback, coupled with the collapse of the previous Rutte government due to Wilders' party's departure over migration issues, created an opportunity for Jetten to revitalize the party. His campaign focused on contrasting his optimistic approach with Wilders' divisive rhetoric. Before his rise to leadership, Jetten worked for Dutch rail network ProRail and served as climate minister under Mark Rutte, though his ambitions were curtailed by the Ukraine invasion and soaring energy prices. He is described as a self-confessed politics nerd who grew up in a small Brabant town and came out as gay at a young age, a personal detail he has largely kept private. He is currently engaged to Argentine hockey player Nicolas Keenan and the pair are due to marry next year. The election was the closest in Dutch history, with both parties vying for the top spot. Wilders, while initially leading opinion polls, struggled to gain traction and even dubbed the news agency ANP66, alleging vote rigging, a claim quickly dismissed. Despite the intense competition, Jetten's campaign proved remarkably effective, securing a historic victory. The outcome represents a significant shift in Dutch politics, potentially marking the end of a prolonged period of conservative leadership. Jetten's victory underscores the power of a positive and inclusive message in a politically polarized environment. Tanzania election protests and uncertainty following disputed results. Following a marred election process marked by clashes and disqualifications, Tanzania is grappling with widespread protests and significant uncertainty surrounding the outcome. Initial reports indicate at least 500 people have died in the ensuing unrest, with some sources claiming figures as high as 700. Demonstrations, primarily in Dar es Salaam, Mwanza, and Dodoma, continue despite government warnings and a nationwide internet shutdown, hindering verification efforts. Opposition parties accuse the government, led by President Samia Suluhu Hassan, of undermining democracy through the imprisonment of opposition leader Tundu Lissu and the disqualification of Luhaga Mapaina, leading to a boycott of the election. The Electoral Commission has begun announcing results, with President Hassan securing a dominant lead, particularly in the southwestern region of Mamdani and in several mainland constituencies, including Zanzibar. The European Union has labeled the election a fraud, unfolding over months, deeming it neither free nor fair. Concerns are mounting over a suppressed voter turnout, further fueling opposition claims. The unrest has resulted in significant disruptions, including widespread internet outages, impacting communication and information flow. Thousands of tourists are stranded, primarily on the island of Zanzibar, due to flight delays and protests. Border towns are experiencing heightened tensions, with Kenyan citizens reportedly avoiding the Namanga border area due to fears of violence. Government responses include imposing a nighttime curfew in Dar es Salaam and ordering civil servants to work from home. Human rights organizations, including Amnesty International, have expressed deep concern over reports of civilian and police officer deaths and are calling for unrestricted access to information. Protesters are utilizing walkie-talk app, called Zello, to coordinate their actions. President Hassan, who took office following the death of John Magufuli, initially received praise for easing political repression, but has since faced criticism for tightening restrictions and alleged targeting of critics through arrests and abductions. The ruling Chama Cha Mapinduzi Party, which has governed Tanzania since independence, is widely expected to maintain its dominance in the upcoming vote, further solidifying President Hassan's position. The situation remains volatile, with ongoing protests and a contested electoral process. Redistricting battles intensify across multiple states. Republican-led efforts to reshape U.S. House districts are gaining momentum, primarily driven by President Donald Trump's strategy to bolster the GOP's chances in next year's elections. The Ohio Redistricting Commission's adoption of new districts represents a key development, potentially awarding the Republican Party 2 additional seats. This action follows similar moves in Texas, Missouri, and North Carolina, reflecting a nationwide push to influence congressional outcomes. The constitutional requirement for redistricting in Ohio underscores the strategic importance of this process. Simultaneously, Virginia is embroiled in a contentious battle over redistricting, with the Democrat-led Virginia General Assembly considering a constitutional amendment that would allow them to bypass a bipartisan commission and redraw districts to their advantage. This move follows a House vote and is anticipated to be debated by the Senate Friday. Democrats are seeking to gain control of the state's congressional map. The national political landscape is dominated by the potential shift in power, as Democrats need to secure just 3 seats to gain control of the House and impede Trump's agenda. Republicans currently hold a significant advantage, and the redistricting efforts aim to solidify their position. Virginia's approach is particularly noteworthy, as it would be one of the few states with a Democratic-led legislature actively participating in the redistricting process. The proposed amendment's passage would enable the General Assembly to create a new congressional map between now and 2030, contingent on other states enacting similar changes. The situation is further complicated by upcoming statewide elections in Virginia, where the outcome will directly impact the Democrats' ability to advance the constitutional amendment. Republicans are criticizing the Democrats' strategy, arguing it undermines established traditions of bipartisanship. Several Republican-held seats are considered vulnerable, intensifying the competitive environment. The redistricting battles highlight a broader struggle for political power and influence across the United States. Trump's push to rewrite January 6 takes a brazen turn. The recent actions surrounding the sentencing of Taylor Taranto, a January 6 rioter convicted of bringing illegal firearms near Barack Obama's residence, reveal a concerning pattern orchestrated by President Donald Trump's Justice Department. Prosecutors Carlos Valdivia and Samuel White were placed on administrative leave, and their sentencing memo, which included critical details about Taranto's actions and involvement in the January 6 riot, was replaced following pressure from the White House. This highlights a deliberate effort to downplay or erase the significance of the events surrounding the Capitol attack and the role of individuals like Taranto. Taranto's case is particularly revealing. He was arrested in 2023 after live-streaming threats of violence against federal facilities, including a planned attack using a car bomb, and was found with numerous firearms. He was subsequently convicted of gun-related charges and making false threats. The initial sentencing memo detailed Taranto's actions, including his reposting of Trump's social media post referencing Obama's address, and his subsequent live-streaming near the former president's home. The Justice Department's swift action to remove this information suggests a direct response to Trump's efforts to reshape the narrative surrounding January 6. This move mirrors a broader pattern of attempts to discredit or silence prosecutors involved in January 6 cases, including the firing of dozens of federal prosecutors and officers perceived as obstacles. The case underscores concerns about potential political interference within the Justice Department. The decision to place the two prosecutors on leave and revise the sentencing memo raises questions about the independence of the legal process. Furthermore, the situation is part of a larger trend of Trump attempting to portray January 6th as a relatively minor event, as evidenced by his use of a choir of January 6 defendants in a music video and his attempts to characterize participants as political hostages. The Justice Department's actions directly contradict this narrative. The judge ultimately sentenced Taranto to 21 months, essentially time served, acknowledging his troubling statements but also noting his lack of criminal history and PTSD diagnosis. Despite the judge's commendation of the prosecutor's work, the episode demonstrates a troubling attempt to manipulate the legal process for political gain. The ongoing efforts to revise court documents and sideline prosecutors involved in January 6 cases represent a significant challenge to the integrity of the justice system and the accurate accounting of events on January 6, 2021. Off-year election results and poll analysis, CNN summary. Several key off-year elections across the United States on Tuesday, November 7, 2024, are providing valuable data points ahead of next year's midterm elections. These races, including Virginia's governor contest, New Jersey's gubernatorial race, New York City's mayoral election, and a California ballot measure regarding congressional redistricting, are generating significant polling analysis and offering insights into voter sentiment. In Virginia, Republican L.T. Gov. Winsome Earl Sears is competing against Democratic Rep. Abigail Spanberger for the governorship. Last year's election patterns are anticipated to continue, with initial vote reporting expected around 7:09 p.m. Eastern, with approximately half of the state's vote tallied by 9:00 p.m. and 90% by midnight. New Jersey's gubernatorial race pits Democratic Rep. Mickey Sherrill against Republican Jack Ciattarelli. Similar to Virginia, the first votes are expected around 8:02 p.m. Eastern, with approximately half of the state's vote reported by 9:20 p.m. and 90% by midnight. New York City's mayoral race features Democratic nominee Zohran Mamdani, independent candidate Andrew Cuomo, and Republican Curtis Sliwa, alongside incumbent Mayor Eric Adams. Initial vote reporting is anticipated around 9:03 p.m. Eastern, with approximately half of the state's vote reported by 9:16 p.m. and 90% by 11:00 p.m. California's ballot measure regarding congressional redistricting, spearheaded by Governor Gavin Newsom, is generating considerable attention. The first votes are expected around 11:06 p.m. Eastern, with approximately half of the state's vote reported by 1:00 a.m., and full reporting anticipated to continue through Wednesday, with 90% of the vote not expected until 9 days after the election. Polling data suggests that the Virginia race is leaning towards Spanberger, while New Jersey shows a slight edge for Sherrill. New York City's race indicates a double-digit lead for Mamdani. The California ballot measure is currently supported by a majority of likely voters, although historical trends suggest potential overestimation of support for initiatives. Analysts emphasize the value of these off-year elections as indicators of broader political trends and voter behavior, noting that last year's election patterns are expected to continue and that understanding turnout rates will be crucial in assessing the landscape ahead of next year's midterms. The delayed full reporting in California highlights the complexities of tracking vote counts in large states. Pheu Thai Party elects Julapun Amornvivat as new leader amidst economic and political challenges. The Pheu Thai Party recently elected Julapun Amornvivat as its new leader, securing 354 out of 369 votes following a General Assembly. Amornvivat, a former Deputy Finance Minister and Chiang Mai MP, succeeds Paetongtarn Shinawatra, marking a significant party restructuring aimed at bolstering public confidence and preparing for the upcoming general election. Amornvivat's appointment reflects a strategic shift within the party, emphasizing improved communication and the selection of high-quality candidates. He brings a background in economics and business administration, holding degrees from Chulalongkorn University and Boston College. Simultaneously, Siam Cement Group, SCG, is bracing for a challenging 12-month period, anticipating economic uncertainties and a political vacuum. The company's president, Themasak Sethautam, highlighted concerns regarding trade tensions between the U.S. and China, alongside the ongoing general election. SCG is shifting its focus towards Southeast Asia, particularly Vietnam, to mitigate these challenges. The company intends to leverage artificial intelligence and robotic systems to control operating costs and streamline operations. SCG anticipates a 3% revenue decline year-on-year, but expects EBITDA to reach 54 billion baht by the end of the year. Furthermore, the Senate's decision to punish Senator Nantana Nantavarapas for a serious ethical violation has drawn criticism for perceived double standards. The upper house voted to refer her case to the National Anti-Corruption Commission (NACC), following her derogatory remark about Senator Dang Kang. This action has amplified concerns about inconsistencies in ethical standards within the Senate, particularly given ongoing investigations involving over 100 senators. The Senate's actions regarding Nantana's case are juxtaposed with previous instances of lenient treatment for other senators facing similar allegations. The political landscape is further complicated by ongoing investigations into alleged vote rigging by senators, adding to the NACC's already heavy workload. The U.S.-Thailand trade negotiations remain a key priority, with Anutin Charnvirakul expressing confidence in positive progress and seeking maximum benefit for Thailand. SCG's long-term strategy involves increased investment in Southeast Asia, coupled with technological advancements to enhance operational efficiency and profitability. Hurricane Melissa devastates Caribbean nations, rising death toll and humanitarian crisis. Hurricane Melissa's impact continues to unfold across Jamaica, Haiti, Cuba, and Bermuda, leaving a trail of destruction and a growing humanitarian crisis. At least 19 people have died in Jamaica, with estimates rising, and at least 30 in Haiti, primarily due to a river overflow in Petit Gove. Search and rescue efforts are hampered by inaccessible areas and widespread damage. Thousands are stranded and desperate for aid, with electricity outages and dwindling supplies exacerbating the situation. Jamaica's western regions have been particularly devastated, with entire communities marooned and many areas flattened. Roads are impassable, delaying aid delivery and hindering rescue operations. Black River, described as Ground Zero, has suffered catastrophic damage, including the complete destruction of a market building and a cafe, alongside significant damage to the fire station. Satellite imagery reveals widespread destruction across the southwestern coast, with buildings reduced to rubble. Haiti's death toll is also climbing, largely attributed to the same river overflow. Approximately 15,000 people are sheltering in over 120 shelters, coordinated by the UN. Cuba has experienced life-threatening conditions for over 3 million people, with 735,000 safely evacuated. Almost 240 communities are cut off due to flooding and landslides. Jamaica's Prime Minister Andrew Holness has highlighted Black River as the epicenter of the devastation. Communication and navigation are severely disrupted, impeding a full damage assessment. Satellite imagery, analyzed by BBC Verify, showcases the extent of the destruction, demonstrating the complete removal of roofs and buildings. Bermuda is bracing for the impact of the storm, with government offices closed and schools shut down until Friday. The storm has caused significant damage in White House, a fishing village, with most structures severely damaged or destroyed, including restaurants and shops. The situation is complex, with ongoing efforts to coordinate aid and rescue operations across multiple nations. The World Food Programme and the U.S. State Department are collaborating to deliver supplies and support. The UK government is deploying additional funding to assist with relief efforts. FBI fires Trump investigation agent, DOJ battles over Comey case and Martin's influence. Recent developments reveal a significant shift within the Justice Department, marked by the firing of FBI Special Agent Aaron Tapp, who previously oversaw investigations related to former President Donald Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election. This action underscores a broader pattern of retribution orchestrated by the Trump administration, fueled by social media pressure and accusations of political bias. TAP's termination is part of a larger lawsuit filed by 3 former senior FBI officials, alleging a White House-directed purge driven by political motivations. Simultaneously, a legal battle is unfolding regarding the charges against former FBI Director James Comey, who is accused of making false statements and obstructing Congress. Comey has pleaded not guilty, and his attorneys are challenging the vagueness of the indictment, requesting a detailed explanation of the alleged false statements made during a 2020 Senate hearing with Republican Sen. Ted Cruz. The central dispute revolves around Comey's testimony regarding whether he had ever been an anonymous source or authorized someone at the FBI to leak information. Prosecutors allege he made false statements, but Comey maintains his previous testimony stands. Adding to the complexity is the influence of Ed Martin, a former Phyllis Schlafly Eagles president, who has risen to a powerful position within the Justice Department. Initially appointed as interim U.S. Attorney for Washington, D.C., Martin has expanded his role significantly, now holding titles including Associate Deputy Attorney General, Pardon Attorney, Director of the Weaponization Working Group, and Special Attorney for Mortgage Fraud. Martin is actively intervening in several high-profile cases, notably pushing for the prosecution of figures like John Bolton, the former National Security Advisor, and Adam Schiff, the former House Intelligence Committee Chairman. He has been particularly vocal in Maryland, where he is urging the U.S. Attorney's Office to pursue charges against Schiff, and has been involved in the investigation of Bolton. His actions have sparked controversy, with some Justice Department officials expressing frustration at his unorthodox methods, including a visit to Adam Schiff's Brooklyn home. Despite these challenges, Martin continues to exert considerable influence, leveraging his position to advance what he perceives as a defense against perceived weaponization of the Justice Department. The ongoing legal battles and Martin's involvement highlight a period of significant upheaval and contention within the Department of Justice. Mamdani defends past statements amid campaign scrutiny. Zafran Mamdani, a Democratic candidate for mayor of New York City, faced renewed scrutiny Tuesday regarding past statements criticizing both the New York Police Department and Israel. A previously circulated video from a 2023 Democratic Socialists of America convention prompted a CNN interview with Anderson Cooper, where Mamdani clarified his remarks. The core of the controversy stems from his assertion that the NYPD's boots are laced by the Israeli Defense Forces, EIDF, a reference to training exercises between the two entities. Mamdani explained that the statement was not intended as a constant accusation, but rather a recognition of the pressures faced by working-class New Yorkers. He emphasized the need for tangible improvements in public safety, shifting the focus from symbolic gestures to material benefits for residents. Cooper pressed Mamdani on whether he still believed the NYPD was working hand in glove with the IDF, to which Mamdani responded that the training exercises were a concern, and his priority is to ensure public safety across the 5 boroughs. Mamdani has previously apologized for social media posts characterizing the police as racist, wicked, and corrupt, and he intends to retain NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch. However, he maintains his criticisms of Israel, particularly regarding its actions in Gaza, and his intention to carry out an arrest warrant issued by the International Criminal Court against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. These positions have generated anger within New York's large Jewish community, prompting Mamdani to reassure them of his commitment to combating anti-Semitism and providing security at synagogues. The NYPD's International Liaison Program, which involves detectives stationed globally, including in Israel, has also been a point of contention. This program, established after 9/11, facilitates intelligence sharing and counterterrorism exercises. Critics argue it has expanded significantly without sufficient oversight. The NYPD's involvement in international deployments, including to Israel, further fuels concerns about collaboration between law enforcement agencies. Mamdani's campaign is navigating this complex landscape, attempting to address voter anxieties about public safety, while upholding his established stances on Israel and policing.